Hi, my name is Steven and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about doing things that you don't want to do, minimizing the struggle. Working on tasks in life that we otherwise want to avoid is an inevitable part of life. Whether it's tackling mundane chores or uncomfortable conversations, these are some of the things that we just don't want to do. Or if the activity is pushing through multiple levels of challenges that you've never done before. But yet in these moments, we have an opportunity to persevere through that challenge and set us on a path of higher resiliency and grit. In this video, I'll show you what I use to help me fight through some of the things that I just don't want to do. Because at some point in all of our lives, we just have to figure out a method in which we can use to overcome that adversity. And going through that is essential to our personal growth and ultimate resilience. Through my own experience, I've gained the most out of life by doing things that I've never wanted to do before. And tackling those difficult tasks head on is one way to build up willpower. And embracing these challenges gives you ultimately a powerful skill set to take with you into any experience. So let's go through some of my insights on how to tackle things that we don't want to do. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about my background, my guide to minimizing struggles, and my general thoughts. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, hit that notification bell if you like this content. And let's do this. Along the journey of our lives, there are some times that we need to do difficult or mundane things regardless of whether we want to or not. And these things have to be completed or else something else in your life might suffer the consequence of it. In cases like these, oftentimes we struggle with the motivation to get those mundane things completed in the first place. And doing so in a timely manner when something is urgent. So in general, it's good for you to have a guide or plan when you find yourself struggling to get through mundane things. As a new parent, I have a lot of administrative tasks that I didn't have before I had a family. And I don't necessarily want to do these things because it takes a lot of time and patience. Although it's very important, that doesn't take away from how difficult and time-consuming it may be. And because of that, it's hard to get motivated to complete things. But even other things like annual taxes and car registration might take a burden on my motivation skills. These things can be a chore to complete, and it's incessantly non-stop. There's no auto-renew button for it. Life is unfortunately filled with these rituals that we need to do the mundane things in order for our lives to go unimpeded. So I put together this guide to help people figure out what is a better path to guide them through the mundane things in life. The main keys of this video are to be mindful of what you're doing and also schedule things in advance. Even if it's important, it might slip your mind and you might not end up doing it at all. The other key is to make sure that we understand the consequences of not doing something very clearly. Because ultimately it can help us focus in on what are the downstream impacts if we don't do this thing. And that can possibly give us the motivation that we need to be successful. So here's my guide to minimizing struggle. Number 1, why is it needed? Understanding the purpose behind why you're doing a task is critical for the motivation for it. Because it provides clarity, focus, and perspective on what you're trying to actually do. And help connect the effort with the outcome that you desire. And additional reasons for doing that task can also help you to prioritize the things that you need. Also, knowing additional reasons why you're doing this task can also help you to prioritize the task among the other things that you're doing in life. And that means you can allocate your mental resources better. And when you're going through this why exercise, you can better understand why you're fundamentally not motivated in doing that task in the first place. And that can provide you a growth and development opportunity for yourself. Before I start doing anything in life, I always ask the question of why I'm doing it and what's my motivation to do it. If I get really clear about the answer to that question, then I'm sold on why I need to do this, regardless of how difficult and challenging or mundane it might be. Even if it will take me a while, I know that the reason behind doing this task is solid. So it's important for me to understand why I do things in the first place. For example, why I do my taxes every year. Because I want to get a refund or I don't want to get audited. Thinking about the why, you can break it down into many different steps. Fundamentally, you're looking for if you don't do X, then Y consequence will happen. Or in the long run, doing this will help me eventually. You don't need to take a long time going through this exercise or delving deep into the details, but you have to know broadly why. Because if it's truly something that you don't want to do in life, then look towards getting rid of it. So before starting that mundane task, ask yourself why you're doing it in the first place. Number 2, schedule it. Scheduling tasks that you don't want to do creates a sense of structure and accountability. By allocating specific time slots to doing your task, you're basically giving yourself a commitment. And you're giving yourself the visibility to not procrastinate once that deadline actually hits. You can't give yourself the reason that you forgot about it and didn't work it. Additionally, scheduling something helps you better with time management of that particular mundane task. Ensuring that if you break the task up appropriately, you can tackle it in bite-sized chunks. and make progress overall even if you're doing it little at a time. Furthermore, it also reduces a lot of stress because you know that you're going to complete this time when you're ready for it. And it helps give you a roadmap to tackle something systematically rather than in your mind. Simply put, if it's not something I want to do and I'm not motivated by it, I try to put it down on a schedule sometime in the future. Because I can get lost in the weeds by the overwhelming amount of tasks that I have to do on a daily basis. It is only when I write it down and tell myself that I'll work it in the future that I'll actually try to get it done. I usually try to target a free day where I batch all the mundane things together and do it all in one lump. When you don't want to do something, it definitely doesn't get easier by just scheduling it. You have to follow through with it. But what it does give you is a written form of communication to yourself in the future that this is something that you want to remember. And putting a date into the future also helps you to strategize how you'll tackle it. You give your mind space to work on the problem. Oftentimes, I put something mundane and hard to do 2 to 3 weeks in advance, and then I think about how I'm actually going to execute on it. During this time, I might think of unique ways to handle and make that task more efficient for me. So when you have something that you don't want to do, schedule it and put it in front of you for the future. Create that action plan and break it into mini steps if needed. Number 3, be mindful. Being mindful of the tasks that you don't want to do gives yourself more awareness and intentionality. By acknowledging your reluctance to do a certain task, you can help inform your own feelings about the subject. You can start to explore your underlying emotions and barriers to why you're resistant in the first place. And just going through this exercise, you might understand why you're not motivated in the first place and find other avenues to get yourself motivated. And this mindfulness can help you stay in the present and focused on the task at hand so you don't get overwhelmed or distracted. And when you're reflecting on a certain task, it gives you more of a neutral to positive mindset, so you're not worried about anything else that might influence you to do that work. The hardest part of self-motivation on tasks that you don't want to do is your own self-barriers. There are tasks in life that are just plain uncomfortable for you to go through. And for those tasks, you might be even less motivated than the typical mundane ones. For me, when I was younger, it was about cleaning and organization. I just didn't want to do it at all. My parents were very clean and organized, and I wanted to resist against that. And so in my childhood, it was a requirement to be clean and organized, but I didn't want to do it at all. So I really struggled in my early adulthood to just get clean and organized. But using mindfulness to focus in on those tasks in my adulthood, I can see the positive benefits of doing that. And think less about the negatives from my childhood about cleaning and organization. The key to being mindful of things that we don't want to do is giving ourselves the time of day to think about those things. We often don't have enough time in our day to think about the mundane and boring tasks that we don't want to do. It's quite possibly one of the last things we want to think about. But that actually means that we are less likely to complete those tasks if we don't think about it. So give yourself that time to reflect on that chore to help you stay in the present and work towards pushing through that adversity. So be mindful of the mundane tasks that you have in life, and you might uncover the reasons why you're so resistant to it in the first place. Number 4, seek support. Seeking support is one of the best ways that I keep myself accountable for the mundane tasks that I need to do in life. That valuable encouragement and other people's perspective can be a great benefit to you. Friends, families, and colleagues can help push us in a positive direction on mundane tasks. And they can also help you with the practical guidance of doing certain things more efficiently. And overall, make the task less daunting for you to overcome. And also sharing your challenges with others fosters a sense of greater connection. And others can also help you brainstorm different ways to tackle your challenges. My life is not lived in a vacuum. I rely a lot on others to help me through challenges in my life. Because there is no way one person can remember and do all the mundane things that they need to do in life. And this is because we're part of a larger system that involves a lot of other people in our lives. And sometimes the things that I do or don't do affects the lives of others. So they can act as co-accountability partners in my life regarding mundane tasks. And this can be a simple written or verbal communication of the mundane tasks that I'm forgetting. Of course, for this to work, that person has to be fairly close to your life and all the mundane tasks that affect them. If you're a fairly independent person or don't have a lot of friends, this might be a challenge to you. For this to work, most of the times you have to be in close proximity with the people in your life. It's definitely harder when you're not around a lot of people, but it can still be done. So when you need help or motivation to get through mundane tasks, look for support from other people. So here are my general thoughts on struggling through mundane things. I think in general, there are just too many tasks in our lives that are just plain dumb or mundane or too complicated to do. And a lot of these tasks involve a lot of government or healthcare processes. Not auto-renewing things or making the paperwork so complex is just plain dumb. With the modern era of technology, things can be much more efficient. Mundane and tedious tasks should be simplified as much as possible. And anything regarding healthcare and health maintenance should be removed of all friction to get those things. Which means health screenings should be easier to get and not harder. This is the 21st century and there are better ways of doing things that we're just not doing it right now. And lastly, these mundane chores or tasks are never going to be 100% perfect. Plan on doing most of them, but not all of them. You're going to miss some mundane or boring chores. The point is not to beat yourself up if you miss a deadline or if you didn't get something done. Most of the time relating to the government, schedules can be missed and deadlines can be pushed out. And that's what inevitably makes the mundane task even harder, that it stretches on past the deadline. You're never quite done with it until they're done with it. So just because you can't get something done on your part doesn't constitute a failure. The key is to plan for things that are under your control and do that to the best of your ability. For those other things that are out of your control, just try to be patient. So those are some of the things that help me when I have to push through mundane or complicated tasks. Everyone has tasks in their lives that they just don't want to do, but at some point we need to have a guide or a plan for it. Because it's still, at the end of the day, important and consequential if we don't get those things done. And if it falls outside of our priority list, it can have negative consequences on our eventual life. In my life, I needed these guides and plans to help me stay motivated to do those mundane tasks. And it's helped me to get more done and be efficient about my time. It's not a perfect system and I'm still battling my own self-motivation to get these tasks done. But with this plan, I at least have some structure to tackle something that I otherwise would not want to do. So I hope you take a few lessons from this video on how to get some mundane things in your life completed. So thank you for watching. Please leave me a comment down below on what is one task that you struggle with and what is the thing that gets you over that hump. And I'll see you next time.